that give you instant access into local queries. So let's see how hard it is for Steve to enter our lunch query. There, he just did it. Pretty easy to enter that query. And this query is more than just the word restaurants, of course. We've also passed through our location. What we see now is our new search interface for mobile local searches, again launching today. And you see at the top we have a map that shows the cluster of restaurants around here, and the blue dot is us. So again, trying to make it easy to see what you're probably looking for with this query. As Steve begins to scroll through the results, you'll see that the map actually changes in place to give me the context of where each restaurant is in relation to me. And you see the listing lists some other information about the restaurant. And let's pick this restaurant here. As Steve taps through, I want to point out how quickly that result came up on the screen to give me more information about this particular restaurant. And that happened because we're using Ajax and the power of the modern browsers on these devices to make sure that all the information that a user might need as they go through these local results is available right away. So there's a local example. Easy to enter that query, easy to consume just the kinds of information that I want from it. So next, let's do a simple search task. Maybe while I'm at lunch, I'll do a query that I do a lot. I want to see how the market's doing. So let's do S&P 500. So let's see how hard this one is to enter. Steve enters S, and boom. So what happened there? Steve only had to type one character, and he got the query that we were looking for. Well, what happened there is that we noticed a while back that people do repeated queries on mobile through the day. They are doing things like checking the market, checking the sports scores, those kinds of things. And so what we have done is to integrate query suggestions from your history with our normal kinds of query suggestions. And so when Steve typed S, because in my history I have the S&P 500 query, that's what came up. With Google Instant on mobile, Steve didn't even have to hit return, and the results came up. But the real reason I wanted to do this query was to point out the results here. If Steve just scrolls a little bit, you'll see that of course we have all the usual kinds of results. You can drill into any of these. But for this kind of query with a strong intent, we've returned at the top here an interactive widget, basically, that gives me the information that probably I'm looking for about the S&P 500. And you can see with the tap, for example, Steve can go and look at how this index has been doing over the year. If he slides, right, we'll see some news for the index, market overview, and some other things. This was something we launched back in March, trying to make, again, this kind of strong intent query very easy to consume the information that you want. So we've done a local one, we've done a simple one. Let's do a little more complicated search. And for this one, I'll just set this up this way. I have a feeling that I'm going to be making a trip to Russia soon. The reason is while we were backstage, Ahmed mentioned to me that if the demos don't go well, he's sending me to Siberia. So I think it's going pretty well. So I'm hoping that he's only going to send me to our Moscow office. And I'm going to need a hotel while I'm there. So let's do Hilton Hotel, Moscow, Russia. So let's see what happens as Steve starts to enter this. As he types HI, not surprisingly, the whole query Hilton Hotel, Moscow, Russia is not one of our top 3 things. But notice that along the side, we've added these pluses. This is, again, is a new feature launching today, something that we've had in the Android search widget and the iPhone search app for a while now. We call it a query building capability. So what Steve can do is tap on the plus, and he goes to the next piece of the query and gets suggestions from there. So he's done Hilton Hotels, he types MOS, and there's Hilton Hotels, Moscow, Russia. So we counted, this query has 26 characters, and Steve did actually 8 taps to enter that query. So again, making it easy to enter these more complicated searches. Let's do one more like that. While I'm in Moscow, I'm going to want to hopefully get a chance to do some sightseeing. So let's do Moscow top attractions. So again, Steve's going to use the query builder to build this query. Okay, so there it is. What I wanted to point out about this query is, for a query like this, you get a lot of different kinds of results. And the textual snippets are trying to help me kind of choose what I want. But what Steve can do here is to actually tap on this spyglass icon that's along the side. This, again, is something we launched a couple months ago. And what this does is take me instantly into a visual search mode, where what we're seeing here is previews, screenshots of each of the results. And so by looking at those, I can see kind of what kind of result it is. And so as Steve scrolls along, this is the kind I was really looking for, something with pictures of all the attractions and little descriptions of each one. And so then, of course, Steve can tap and get to that. So for these more complicated queries, we've used the query builder to make it easier to enter your query. And then things like this feature which we call mobile instant previews to make it easy to use the results and get to the result that I want.